I'd like to ask just two more questions about the election before we move on from the election. And these are things that have come to mind as you've been speaking. I remember that your wife is a therapist,
Yes.
and I also know that you have some interest in psychoanalysis.
Yes.
And you have mentioned a couple of times in this conversation that involved in Trump and his policies is this hodgepodge of contradictions. And what this makes me wonder is whether you think that there's something that psychoanalysis as a form of cultural analysis might tell us about the election. Is there something going on in America's subconscious that led people to vote for Trump? Some sort of
Oh, yeah.
contradictory
Sure.
impulses or
Sure. And the reason I focus on economics is not that I'm an economist. I'm an economist because I became fascinated by the economic dimension of things. So I would like to say that it's not, the old joke, if you're a carpenter, then everything looks like a nail. It's not that. It's that the economics, and I can tell you just for myself, as I went through, when I arrived as a freshman in college, I wanted to be a biochemist. That was my intention. I had been a science kind of person in high school, and I wanted to be, and my first semester was all math, physics, chemistry, second semester biology. So here I am an economist. I obviously didn't do that. I didn't make that my career. And that's because I discovered that the questions I had about the economic system, which came out of my life, my family, my conversations, particularly with my father, and so on, and that those questions were never answered by the teachers that I would say. And I think I mentioned this to you before, that those teachers either didn't know the answer, which was often the case, or they did, and either told me, rarely, or showed me, more often, that they really didn't want me to pursue this in the class with my hand up. I was a good student. I got all A's and blah, blah. My parents made sure of that. So I had, the teachers were friendly to me. There wasn't oppositional. A couple of exceptions, but not many. They were afraid. And I think the fear in their eyes, which I pursued by going to their offices and just sitting one-on-one with them, where they told me what they were. I realized I was right. I saw fear. And they told me, that they were afraid. They didn't want this. They wouldn't mind talking with me in their office. And then they basically explained to me what I verified later anyway, that, and this is Harvard, so you might think it wasn't. You'd be wrong. It was not good for your career. They were concerned. They don't know how a conversation in which I ask questions dealing with Marxism and they answer them would lead students to begin to say, "Oh, not teaching," without meaning the teacher any harm, but the students would chit-chat and all that. And they were afraid. And I think my interest, combined with their unwillingness or incapacity to answer them, drew me into the field. So if you ask me, why do I focus on economics? Because the environment in which I was educated couldn't handle it. It was a taboo, It's like saying to someone, why are you interested in sex? If they're honest, they'll tell you, whatever the manifold reasons might be. One of the reasons is a big taboo. And when they ask questions, Aunt Louise freaked out, or their father told them to go talk to the mother, and vice versa. We all know this, and that's part of why we're interested in sex, because it has been handled in the bizarre ways that our culture does that. I'm interested in economics because I think it helps explain things, but much more important, it's the missing thing in the explanations. Otherwise, we're stuck with work at the level of your representation. I don't want to hold Mr. Hansen, but the way you represented it, which I assume is the perfectly reasonable way of doing it, that I don't want to work at that level. That's for me, that's not serious stuff. And by the way, Tucker Carlson sometimes really goes after the economics. And you can see that even today. What did I see today? Oh yeah, coming here in the taxi, there was a little ad, a political ad. Bust. The slogan was "Bust Big Pharma." Okay, I found that interesting. I am agreeing with. I would like to bust Big Pharma too, but I'm surprised that somebody raised the money to do this sort of thing. Okay, that's sort of interesting. And I have noticed in some right-wing pieces I've read an immense hostility to Big Pharma, a hostility which the right wing didn't used to do, but it's doing it now.
Yeah.
What's that? That's an allowable area. Yet, to watch the inauguration of Mr. Trump and to see immediately in the front row the people sitting behind him, the billionaires of our time, not the governors, not the Supreme Court justice, who is the celebrate? And their achievement is they have a lot of money. And they're going to be with this president. He wants them there. That's why they're there. They want to be there, and he wants them there. This is very interesting. And so he can go after Big Pharma. They don't stop him. They carefully avoid going there. But Big Pharma is not that far from big high tech, which is what's coming next anyway. And we'll see how Mr. Trump deals with it.